Hello and welcome. In this video, we'll be learning about how to solve quadratic equations and how to use the quadratic formula to our advantage. Alright, so let's say we've been told to solve this kind of an equation. You might be tempted to divide by x and you will get x equals to 9, but that's not the correct way to solve it because we don't know x could be 0 and we cannot divide by 0. So this fact of performing a division by x is actually incorrect way of going about this question. I would collect 9x on one side of the equation with x squared. So I would subtract 9x from x squared and write it like so. Then solving actually involves factorizing this equation. You can factorize it into x multiplied by x minus 9. So you write it like so, and then you say this means that either x is equals to 0 or x minus 9 equals to 0. So one of the solutions would be x equal to 0. The other solution would be x minus 9 equal to 0, and that means x equals to 9. All right. So the as I said, if you perform this calculation and you divided both sides of the equation by x, you would have actually missed out on one of the solutions. You would have missed out. You would have got x equals to 9, and you would have actually missed out on this answer here, which is the fact that x is equal to 0. Now, plotting this graph is going to tell us that one of the point roots goes through the origin. All right. So and the other root is like so. So let's look at another example. If you had to solve this equation, that means first you factorize it, and then you set each of these factors equal to 0, and you solve for x. Then you would get these two roots. If you had to plot it, you would say -3 must be on the left and the 5 must be on the right. Now, how would you find the intercept here? This is important for chapter 4 when we have to uh, plot graphs, or even chapter 3 and so on. To find that coordinate of the y-intercept, you set x equals to 0 and you substitute it into this equation. 0 here and here makes this y value equals to minus 15. So I know that y-intercept is actually minus 15 because of that 15 there. All right, so let's look at another example. Now, I've told you how to factorize these previously and show you one more time if you've forgotten. You need to multiply 2 by minus 5. I would write this as x squared minus 9x minus 10 equals to 0. Not forgetting that I multiplied by 2. My last step involves the division by 2. So I'm gonna just write here might divide by 2 so I won't forget it. Now, what are the factors of negative 10 that add up to minus 9? 5 and 2 don't add up to minus 9. So what could it be? It could be minus 10 plus 1. So I write those two factors inside my bracket. So one of the x's will have to go with minus 10, the other x will have to go with the plus 1. And because the sum of these two numbers is a minus 9. Then I say now it's time to divide by 2. 10 does divide by 2, but 1 doesn't divide by 2. So I write in this bracket x minus 5, and I put the 2 in front of the x in the next bracket. I write 2x plus 1. So this is the factorized form of that original equation. Now solving it means taking the factors out of the bracket. This tells us x equals to 5, and this other bracket tells us x equals negative 1 over 2. That means that if we had to plot the graph, the negative half would be on the left and 5 would be on the right because of the order of the values. Now, what would be the y-intercept? Y-intercept would be minus 5 because when I substitute 0 for x here, these two terms, first two terms will be 0, and we would have just a minus 5. Alright, let's look at another example. So, if you had to factorize this without a calculator, I would multiply 6 by minus 5, not forgetting that I multiplied by 6. I'm going to put a division by 6 there, so I won't forget. So I write this as plus 13x, and I write minus 30. Factors of 30 that add up to minus 30 that add up to positive 13 are plus 15 and minus 2. Alright, so I put those factors inside the bracket. I'll have x plus 15 and x minus 2. Not forgetting that I need to divide by 6 now, because I removed this 6 and I put a 1 in its place. Now, dividing 15 by 6 doesn't work, and dividing 2 by 6 doesn't work. But I can simplify it. 15 over 6, they both divide by 3. So I'm left with 5 and 3. I'm going to put the 3 in front of the x here, put a 5 next. And 2 over 6 simplifies to 1 over 3. So I'm going to put a 3 in front of the x here, just like I did with this bracket. I'm going to write 3x minus 1. Now, there seems to be an answer. There seems to be an error. Here, when I divide by 3, I should have put a 2 here. So that's a 2, not a 3. Because I was simplifying with dividing these two numbers by 3. Alright, so now that this is a factorized form, and that's equals to 0, that the first bracket tells me that x equals to minus 5 over 2, and the second bracket tells me x equals to 1/3. Actually, that was the original answers I had in the bracket. Okay, so in any case, now I know that if I had to sketch the graph, I draw a smiley face, and I put negative 5 over 2 on the left, because that's smaller than 1/3. If I wanted to know what's the y-intercept, I substitute 0 for x, and I end up with a minus 5 here. Alright, so I hope you found this helpful. Let's look at another question. Now, in the next example, you have to solve a quadratic that's equal to a linear line. Now, you can still make this quadratic equal to 0 by subtracting 2 and subtracting a 3x. So you end up with this expression here that's now equal to 0. Can we factorize this? What are the factors of 16 that add up to minus 8? Minus 4 and minus 4 go inside the bracket, so we can write it like so. And the factors in this case are, the solution is 4. How do we plot this graph? Because this is a repeated root at 4, the, the graph for this will actually look like only one point, the minimum point of the graph will be cutting the x-axis. Oh, actually, it wouldn't be cutting the x-axis, it would be tangent to x-axis, both from the left and the right. And the solution is a 4. So this would be a plus 4. Where would it cross the y-axis? If you substitute x equal to 0 into this equation, you get a positive 16. So the y-intercept is 16. Alright, so although the question doesn't ask us to plot the graph, it's helpful to understand what's going on. Alright, so let's look at the next example. Now here you can square root both sides, so you get plus and minus 5 on the right side. Then you add 3 to both sides, and you end up with 2x equals to 8, and finally x will be 4. Now, if you chose the minus 5 on the right side, you get a different solution. You end up with minus 2 on the right divided by 2 will give us minus 1. Alright, so what's going on here is that we are actually finding the intersection of this y line where it's y equals to 25 and a quadratic equation which has roots of the quadratic equation here is 2x minus 3. If we want to know its root, we'll set one of the roots equal to 0 and solve it for x. So we end up with 3 over 2. So it has a repeated root at 3 over 2. So it's tangent to x-axis at point 3, positive 3 over 2. That's the x-axis down here. If we wanted to know what's the y-intercept, you could substitute 0 for x. And if I rewrite this bracket as 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3 times 3 is a 9. So its y-intercept is a 9. So this is what's going on here. Alright, what we found these solutions to be is where the horizontal line y equals to 25 cuts the graph, cuts the curve for x 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3. Alright, so that's why this value is a positive 4x, x equals to 4, and at this point x equals to minus 1. And this is the y-axis. Alright, so let's look at another example. Now, one more time, when you take a square root of both sides, you end up with plus and minus 7 here. So actually plus and minus root of 7. So one of the answers is 3 plus 7, square root of 7, and 3 minus the square root of 7. Now, in the next question, you should be familiar with the quadratic equation as well. To solve it, some questions don't simplify and don't factorize. So the only way to find their solution is with this formula here. You do have to memorize it for A-level maths. So minus a b plus and minus root b square minus 4ac under the square root all divided by 2a. If you don't know what a, b, and c are, you look at your equation. A, b, and c are these values here. So the coefficient of x squared is always a. Coefficient of x to the power of 1 is negative, in this case negative 3. Don't forget the sign that goes with it. And the value of c is this minus 2 here. So don't forget the signs. You substitute these values into the formula, and you, because of the plus and a minus root sign, you end up with two answers. Once you evaluate it with the plus sign, this fraction can be evaluated with the plus sign here or with the minus sign. So finally, you end up with these two answers. Okay? So happy practicing. I'll see you in the next video.